Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing the first season of Narcos. It's a show on Netflix released in 2015. This show details the rise of the coke trade in Colombia, with Pablo Escobar in charge of the Medellin drug cartel. It shows his sort of rise to power and wealth, and we follow a number of characters who try to take down Pablo Escobar, including some American DEA agents, as well as the Colombian government, and a group of Colombians led by Carilla, who kind of goes around with a bunch of soldiers, taking out all of those who are connected to the drug industry. Yeah, overall, the story follows this DEA agent from America, Steve Murphy. He and his wife moved to Colombia, and he tries to help take down Pablo Escobar. He works with a few of the other characters to try and take him down, but inevitably, anyone who dares to get in Pablo's way ends up dead, whether they be cops, politicians, or anyone really. See, Escobar has a great deal of control in Colombia. When it comes to people who could be a threat to him, such as cops or politicians, he makes an effort to know who their family members are, who is close to them, so he can threaten family members. There's a scene right at the start that shows us this when a bunch of cops pull him over and they want to open up all the stuff he's got in his trucks. And then he starts naming all of their family members and gives them the option of letting him go and accepting a bribe, or they can face the consequences. Throughout the show, we really do get to see the terror that he sows throughout Bogota. Everyone's afraid of him, and for good reason, because he kills a lot of people. Not directly, necessarily. He has other people to take care of it, but many people get shot down and gunned down when they try and oppose him. Later in the season, there's also bombs going off, which increases the levels of terror throughout the country quite a bit. He also makes sure to capture people who are important to his enemies, capture like family members, and threaten to kill them if he doesn't get what he wants. So overall, he's a very scary villain. And the fact that this is inspired by true events and Pablo Escobar is a real person makes it even scarier. Now, Escobar is really one of the main characters of the show. He gets quite a lot of focus, which does quite a lot of wonders to flesh him out as a character and a person. Overall, there's quite a few characters in the show, but what I like about it is the show doesn't fall into the usual good versus evil sort of thing. Like, at the end of the day, it is the good guys against the bad guys. Escobar and the rest of his cartel, they're obviously bad people. They're very bad people. But a lot of the methods that the good guys use against Escobar are a bit questionable. For example, that Carilla guy who has his army he goes around with, they full on shoot down anyone connected to the cartels. They just gun them down, and sometimes innocents get taken out in the process. Men who are captured by Carilla are usually executed as well. Prisoners are not kept often unless there's a specific purpose for them. They use torture to get information, and it makes this whole situation feel a lot more interesting. See, Carilla is a very grey character. We also have the main characters, Steve Murphy and Javier Pena. Now, these two are American DEA agents who are working in Colombia, and they're the good guys, but sometimes they do some morally dubious things. But they're more like a light grey. They're not quite a dark grey like Carilla, they're more like a light grey. But it's handled very well. I totally buy the way that they are portrayed, and given who they're up against, it makes sense that they would need to resort to some more unsavory means. The main character, Steve Murphy, is also the narrator of the story. Now, in terms of narration, the first episode has quite a lot, as it sort of goes into the backstory and sets up the whole series, really. And after that, the use of narration sort of dies down a bit. It's still in all the episodes, but it doesn't get used quite as much as in the first episode. The narration is handled pretty well. It fits pretty well and helps establish things and explain some things that wouldn't necessarily be able to be explained otherwise. And it helps make the story feel a bit more real, because it ties in like real photos from the events and stuff that these are based on. It helps you to remember that this story is inspired by true events. Overall, the story feels very authentic. It feels real and authentic. And another thing that helps this is the use of two languages, English and Spanish. See, characters like Steve Murphy or the American ambassador, they speak English. And there's a lot of characters that are American and speak English, but most of the characters in are Colombians who speak Spanish. I think the show handles it really well. It perfectly blends the two languages. Characters speak whichever language makes sense for the time. So if you have Pablo Escobar talking to his mates, they're speaking Spanish. Or if you got Carilla talking to his people, they're talking Spanish. But then Carilla also speaks English when he's talking to Steve Murphy and Pena later on, because he doesn't trust people that are around. And then you have like Murphy and Pena occasionally dipping into Spanish when the situation calls for it. So it's a good blend. It feels believable and authentic. It's not like, say, Hunt for Red October, where all the Russians speak Russian for like 10 minutes, and then the movie's like, oh, fuck it, just have them go speak English. Yeah, so overall, it was a very, very good show, I think. Oh, I've only seen the first season. The first season was very good, had a gripping story that kept me wanting to watch more and more. The characters were entertaining to watch, they were fleshed out, and their actions were believable. And the moral questions that the show poses are a really strong selling point of why it's such a compelling watch. You have these characters, grey characters, doing some bad things, but compared to what Escobar does, it does kind of seem necessary. It kind of poses that question of, do the ends justify the means? Is it okay to do bad things for good reasons? Stories that pose questions like these are often quite good and compelling when they're done right. A story that makes you ponder and think, leaves you with something more than just a bunch of, action scenes and funny dialogue and stuff that you get from most action movies. It's a lot more deeper and meaningful. It's also a very eye-opening experience just to see how messed up that things got back in the 80s in Colombia. Like, just to see how effective Escobar's reign of terror was, and like just to see how much money they make from their coke industry is just insane and scary as well. And just the sheer number of people who get killed as well. Like, this show is absolutely brutal. Now, in terms of negatives, I don't think there's too much in the way of negatives. I think it was a very good watch, very compelling watch. There was a lot of nudity and a lot of sex scenes that were, quite frankly, unnecessary. They didn't really need to be there, and they didn't really add anything to the plot. They probably could have done without that. But aside from that, it's a very good show, very good watch. I would highly recommend it. Just be warned that it's a very brutal and violent show. And I will most definitely be continuing watching it and reviewing the other seasons in future. So if you want to see those reviews when they come out, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you can get notified when I post a new review. Anyway, that's it for my review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!